Okay, welcome to the Personnel Board meeting for March 19th, 2026. And just looking at our agenda, we do have public comment, but I don't see anyone from the public here. And the next item is to just review the February 26th, 2026 minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Chris, did you send those out?
I did, but if you want, I can share them now and folks could take a look at them. And that'll give me a chance to fix my tech issues. So,
Did they come out like moments ago?
I think I sent them over like an hour ago, but I can share
Okay.
them now.
Yeah, I didn't see them, so I thought they weren't done. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I meant to send them earlier and got tied up. But let me share them now. Let's see. So here is a copy. Take a look. I'm going to see if I can fix this thing.
Just for the sake of moving things along, I will move that we accept the minutes of February 26th.
Yeah, and the only item I saw was we got to make sure Julie's name is spelled correctly. So I think it was Chalfont with an O. So we'll make that change. Oh yeah, there we go, Chalfont.
I'll second that motion, with the caveat of correcting the spelling of Julie's last name.
Unless she wants to be Chalfont.
We could ask her.
Okay, sounds good. I can do a roll call. Hold on, let me just.
Can I have two seconds more?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I guess my only comment would be the South County EMS policies. We didn't talk about that at all at the last meeting, did we?
No, I think the only thing we touched on was that I had been trying to work with Josh to get a member of SCEMS as the employee representative to this
right.
board.
Right. I do recall that now.
Let me check if Alex Hirschenredder put these minutes together. Let me check if he included that.
He just had basically the agenda item, but no comment on it.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm happy to make that change. Just add one line because I don't think we spoke about any other aspect of the policies.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable if you just noted something. Sure.
And I can update Julie's name too.
Perfect.
All right, sounds good. So we have James Cambian.
James Cambias, aye.
Cambias, not the Cambian era.
Nope, that has an R in it. That would have an R in it anyway.
Cambrian, right. Eric Farrell.
Yes.
And Holly Lankowski.
Yes.
And Raloon Bialik, yes.
Great. All right. So I believe next on our agenda, we've got Matthew and Julie just speaking to the facilities coordinator position. I'm going to pull up what I believe is the latest version of that. And I think I sent it over to everyone last month as well. But take a look. I think per usual, the grade and step are kind of TBD. I think we plugged in an E here, just for purposes of understanding what the impact on the budget might be. But otherwise, Julie and Matthew, if you want to speak to, the idea behind the position and what's the story here?
Me, Julie?
Yeah,
All right, me first.
You take it, Matthew.
All right. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey,
Just wanted to kind of give a quick summary of this position. What tends to happen here, I think we can all recognize within the town, including the highway department, that we lack in a few areas of building maintenance. And I think with the additions of some of the bigger projects coming in, like the 88 building turning into town hall, the brand new library, we lack in a few areas. And it's not because we don't know what we're doing. It's lack of human resource. It's a lack of timing, and things like that. So we thought it was best to move forward to try to get a position of this sort, to take care of the maintenance of all of our town buildings at once. I did a little searching, and it looks like there was, in the past, there was a facilities person in the DPW in the past, but that had fizzled out. And so we're trying to bring that back in and get all these buildings together on a program. There's a lot of aspects, I think, that Julie and I talked about what this person can do. Where I kind of see this person is almost like somebody who can not only fix things, but can also put together a capital plan. They can put together maintenance programs, and they can sort of bring all of our buildings, up to snuff, if you will. And if you had any questions, I know you guys have kind of read through this. There was a lot to kind of digest, and I figured if you had any questions, I figured I'd pop in to see if I could answer any of those for you. And if Julie has anything more, what she thinks about the position too. Julie?
You pretty much said it. I think my goal with thinking about this position was to get a person whose focus was facilities and who was in the buildings all the time, who could do repairs. You already said this, do the repairs themselves, figuring out what repairs are beyond their, the scope that they can handle, hiring somebody to come in and do those repairs, but just having somebody who focused on building maintenance and keeping the buildings up. I think it's something that we have not been great at over past years. And now that we have the new addition to the library, the new 1888, the refurbishment in the church building, that we need to keep them up. We put a lot of money into these buildings and they need to be maintained.
Yeah, I agree. There was I started here. It's actually just hit a year last week. And right when I started, I found a lot of, deferred maintenance on things. I found, when I came in March, I found boilers not even firing. I found, air conditioning units in these buildings not even being serviced for the past few years. There's a lot I can do and a lot my team can do. But what happens is, our job as highway guys is like, we're fixing road infrastructure, right? They're in equipment. They're in the road. They're fixing potholes and catch basins, and they're mowing grass. It's not that we can't do the maintenance on the buildings. It's that we just don't have the resources to pull these guys off of those jobs in order to do building maintenance. So a lot of times we feel like it gets pushed back. So the timing of it, sometimes of the repairs isn't the greatest, and it doesn't fit the needs of some of the building operations that we have.
I think if I could ask a question, this is Holly. When we looked at this position, it seemed as if there was a real blending of an administrative position and a maintainer position. And I think, some of our question was, are we looking for almost two distinct aspects of what someone can do, or is there such an individual who would fill all of what you've talked about?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. So, we started going through this, and I think for me, particularly, it makes sense for me is to try to find somebody who can do all this. The rate of pay that we're offering, I think we're confident that we can find somebody that can do all of these things on here. We didn't want to just bring in some guy that, could change a doorknob or we wanted to bring in somebody that could also put together a capital plan. Somebody that could walk through a building and be like, hey, this flat roof or these couple layers up on this flat roof of town hall, they're aging about 15 years. I see some pits, some cracks. We should probably put this on the 10-year capital plan. But where I kind of see this the most part is me working with this person. So it's not like I'm totally ignorant and to the fact that, I am ultimately responsible for everything. But I think this person can work with me to be able to establish those long-term plans and maintenance programs and all that kind of stuff. I don't have enough time in the day to actually walk every building, go on every roof. I'm doing a little bit here and there. Like some of these things in here, I've started to work on myself. Like I've got a vendor list that I started to do. But I'm also working on, road projects and wastewater plants and, a lot of different aspects. So I think this person, my expectations of this person is to not only be able to do the smaller things like change doorknobs, change light bulbs, but also to come in the building, oversee, the daily maintenance of it, the daily cleanliness of it, and just making sure that the buildings operate in the way that they're supposed to.
Thank you.
I kind of see it as a person who, this isn't an entry level position. So this is somebody who has some background and skills, but has reached, it's not a management position, but it's a more senior person who can do that sort of coordination oversight role in addition to fixing stuff.
Yeah, and I think, in the beginning, one of my thoughts is maybe to, obviously in here you see the qualifications. We put one of the either electrical, plumbing, or HVAC license preferred. In my mind, if we found somebody that actually had one of those, on how valuable that would be to the town in general. Even say we found, a maintenance guy that had an electrical license. There's some of the things that we have to hire an electrician for, like street lights and the list goes on. If we have that availability in house, it's well worth it just on that alone.
Jim, you got a question?
Yes, I take it then that you don't have a specific person already in mind.
Well, no, we do not. No, not at all. I would like to get the best candidate possible. So.
And Julie and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we kind of determined probably FY27 isn't in the cards for this position. Yeah. So we're really
There's
kind
no
of
money right now.
exactly. So it's kind of a very preliminary conversation because we're not trying to build it into next year's budget.
Am I confused or doesn't FY27 start in July?
Correct. Yeah.
So you'd be looking to hire this person before July?
No. Sorry, we're not looking to hire this person at all until FY28 at the earliest.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Thanks.
So I do have one other question. Is there a particular focus for personal skills that you want to really look for? You mentioned electrician, but are you really going to be looking for an HVAC person or a roofing person or somebody? What would be the the absolute required area of knowledge.
Yeah, I think there on the back here, there's a list of qualifications and requirements. But just in general for me, well, for me anyway, would be to get somebody with extensive knowledge in building maintenance, right? So I would try to find somebody who's got a construction background, maybe like a jack of all trades who's been down this road before. To me, it's mostly about putting together what I call an O&M plan. It's the operation and maintenance plan for each building, just to simplify things, right? So when you get into a building, you've got everything from structures to your mechanicals to, walls and ceilings and windows, like everything needs maintenance. So to me, I'd like to find an educated person that would be able to get into a building and dissect the components of the building and set up an entire O&M plan so that the building runs efficiently in the way that it's supposed to be.
Just out of curiosity, does each building have a logbook or a record, a file?
So at this point, none of them do.
Ooh,
Right.
yikes.
I think it's just years and years of just like not only deferred maintenance, but also like making files or writing things down or following a policy or following, an O&M plan, if you will. But like when I got into the highway building, I was expected to like pull up an Excel file and see like different buildings with different maintenance programs and stuff like that. But there's just nothing. And it doesn't mean that maintenance wasn't done on everything. It just means that there was no protocol. And I've spent the last year or two, like I've got a few of these buildings. I set up generator services for all of our emergency generators. So we have service on those. We have new HVAC service on most of our buildings routinely. Small things that I can do like that, I've been doing just to get them going and serviced and ready to tackle the things that they're supposed to.
Well, it certainly sounds to me like this is a needed thing. Do you feel like is it a full-time position?
Yeah, full-time position. And I think also in general too, like this position will be underneath, will be in the union underneath the DPW. So when he gets caught up, we have no lack of work or things that he can be doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't really have any judgment of how long these tasks would take, but it feels like if it's a full-time person, there should be sort of some backup. They can be backup to other people who.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and in the winter too, it'll be by way of contract, he'll be involved in our winter snow operation too, whether it be, shoveling the sidewalks at the town buildings or, snow blowing or, and if time allows, maybe he'll be in a plow truck.
Yeah.
There's certainly no lack of work, that's for sure.
I have to admit to being a little bit worried that we will hire a person with good intentions to be the facilities guy and he'll get sucked into doing full-time helping out DPW. But you're pretty disciplined, so maybe that won't happen.
Thanks. Just hold me to it.
Well, there's also the concern of, this person gets hired, they get all these O&M plans going, they kind of put things on a schedule, and then, maybe what they're doing in terms of facilities just slows down a bit, and then they get sucked in to the other side.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. It's like their priority needs to be the
Facilities piece.
the maintenance plan of the facilities. And if only when that's done are they available for other tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, especially if you guys think that you can find a person with these qualifications. It makes a lot of sense to me. So Chris, do you need us to vote on approving this job description? Is that kind of
No,
what our next step is, or is this more of a informational session?
I think it's more informational. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up that this is kind of in process. In all likelihood, again, so we're not looking at this until FY28. And I believe, given that it's a position that would be under the union, we're going to have to go to them and have that conversation as well. So I think, maybe the homework here is to, send this around to everyone, which I did earlier. Take a look at it. If you have other thoughts or comments, maybe I can send around a Word copy and, feel free to mark it up. And then maybe just send it back to me and I can distribute and we can discuss at our next meeting, or just get it back to Julie and Matthew so they can keep kind of thinking through the position. Again, we have a lot of time because we're not trying to get done for July 1. And we do, I think, want to get it to a pretty good place with Personnel Board before we go to the union next year. So I think that's the goal.
And Chris, what would be the time frame, if we're looking for this one fiscal year off, that we'd want to make sure we get our work done to not slow the process?
Yeah, I think, it's a good question. I don't know how long it would take with the union. I don't know, Matthew, if you have a sense. Roger's pretty responsive.
So adding a position is always much easier than removing a position, and already in the contract is a grade E. That's why I put it as a grade E, because it's already in the contract. It's just blank. So there's no title assigned to grade E, which is why I chose grade E, because I think it would be a much smoother, easier transition through the union just to add the name title to the grade.
Yeah. So hopefully then for this body's purposes, if we're in a good place by the start of calendar year 27, that'll allow us to be in a good place to actually get it approved and done with the union before July 1 of 2027.
Because I'm still learning on this board, does this new position have to be approved through town meeting?
No, the budget for the position does though. So, in theory, there would be, a side letter or MOA adding this position to the contract to the CBA. And then finance would have to, put forward, see what Matthew's budget is that includes that position. And that would have to go to town meeting. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
That
Any
sounds
other-
good to me.
Great. Any other questions from Personnel Board for Matthew or Julie?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you both for making the time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. There's my roommate. So I think next on the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the performance management program. Let me just pull that up really quick. So I think the kind of consensus with the committee last time was that at least the first year, we're looking at doing an update to the personnel manual that is not tied to bonuses and steps. So it's kind of a soft open for this performance management program, so to speak. I did want to just mention there had been a question about how Chief Pachurik budgets for bonuses, because that was, we saw that it's built into the collective bargaining agreement with the police officers union. It is a little interesting in that his budget has, the payroll budget has a bit more squish in it than, say, town hall employee budget, simply because he has overtime and all those other factors that make it a little bit trickier to just budget. And so I believe there's no specific line item for bonuses. It's just if there is money available at the end of the year and folks have met those benchmarks, then they can be awarded a bonus. I believe is how it's worked in the past. And I think I saw a copy of a memo from Holly, or to Holly rather, to Brenda last year, just outlining who gets those bonuses based on their performance reviews. So that's been the process with police so far. Again, a little bit more challenging to budget for bylaw employees, because our payroll budgets are a little bit more cut and dry. Folks aren't really working overtime, and there's just usually less. Yeah, there's more certainty. You know the step, you know the grade, you know the hours, and that's kind of it. So that would be a question about how you want to, and maybe that's a question for finance committee, how exactly they would want to budget for that. But again, it's a question for FY28 since we don't have to cross that bridge yet. Yeah, Jim?
Yeah, well, so you mentioned budgeting for it, and that raised my ears. Right now, this doesn't look like it is going to have any additional cost associated with it. And if it becomes a criterion for bonuses, are you talking about adding performance bonuses in addition to step increases in COLA for town employees?
Well, so that was the question, right? So Holly had put together a proposal that included an option for bonuses. So if I'm understanding correctly, Holly, it was going to be, step increase and COLA, and then maybe a bonus also. The bonuses were small, low hundreds of dollars. So something in line with less than what our longevity payments are. I think our longevity for most years is like an additional $500, and this would be less than that per year. But correct me if I'm wrong, Holly. I think that was sort of the thinking there.
Well, I was looking at the verbiage that you shared from the police contract. Could you put that up maybe?
Yeah, let me.
Verbiage?
Yeah,
I think it was. I gave you two documents, so it might be on the other.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
And that was really more for discussion because I wasn't sure if we wanted to go that way or not. Because there is obviously some maybe tie into people looking at their performance more, seriously, if it might impact their pay on the positive or negative. But I just sort of encapsulated that information. And certainly those were dollar figures that were in the police side of it. It doesn't have to be that higher range if it was going to be just a token amount to recognize outstanding performance, because I think that was only tied to the highest level of performance.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, you also are saying not only are you tying bonuses to exemplary performance, but you're saying if you actually, say get a needs improvement or worse than that, then you can be denied a step increase. So.
Right.
So there, in theory, there might be some folks who are getting less than they would under the current system, just based on performance. Yep, Jim?
Correct.
How would they get less? It sounds like they would not get this additional money, but they would still be getting step increase in COLA, yes?
No, so what it says here, and again, this is all, to Holly's point, totally draft language just for discussion, but the second paragraph here says, employees may be denied a salary step increase.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is there's more carrots, but there's also more sticks, right? That's the idea.
And again, that piece of what I drafted was just somewhat of a mirror to what is on the police contract for discussion. I know that there's two perspectives of tying performance reviews to salary. Sometimes it skews how a supervisor may be rating someone because they don't want to impact their salary, or if they would want to impact it favorably, they could say someone was doing a superior performance when they're really not. And so again, this was more discussion if we decided to include it, some draft verbiage.
And I don't want to get too hung up again, because it sounded to me like the consensus from the board was we're not going to do this in FY27 anyway. We're not planning on implementing it with bonuses or denying step increases until we've had some more kind of buy-in on the overall performance management program anyway.
Chris, you seem to be cutting in and out. I don't know if your speaker is.
Oh, okay. I'll try to get a little closer and I will, maybe I'll turn off my camera for a minute, see if that helps.
So I believe I mentioned this last time. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm still concerned about it. I'm afraid this will become just a rubber stamp that everyone gets bonuses every year because nobody wants to be the department head who doesn't give bonuses. And so this is effectively just becoming another, part of the salary, basically.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to the conversation here. I think there's a concept of performance evaluations as a base level one, getting used to that and I think that's a reasonable um piece of being having a job. Like there should be regular performance evaluations, whatever cadence that needs to be on. I think I would support something like that. I think the financial component of it, I think that's worth having more involved conversations over the span of the next, say 12 or so months, to see if that's something that the town would want to explore for FY28. But I think moving forward with some sort of a performance evaluation for FY27 um, would be I'm definitely would be somebody in support of that.
And Eric, I agree with your comments, and that's why when we talked just to introduce this at our last meeting, I said to get buy-in, it might be
Yeah.
good to not have that financial attachment to it for the first year. Just sort of let people get used to what they need to do, how they need to do the process, and not have it be laden with impacting a salary positively or negatively. Because that at least would start the process to get this management program in place.
I guess what I'm saying is that might be a good end state as well. I'm afraid that because there is salary, there's a financial impact to the employee, that everybody just gets a gold star, whereas if there is no stick or carrot, then at least we'll get honest evaluations.
Yeah, my understanding is the goal would be that like in FY27 will be the first, like the evaluations themselves will be performed, whatever how in whatever format that we can figure out and determine. But that for FY20 there will be nothing. I think there shouldn't be any conversations, information shared to employees, like whether the financial side of things is even something under consideration. Now, I would imagine that there's probably people who could probably read between the lines on that we might be going in that direction, but um, I don't think any decisions need to be made at that point.
Actually, this would probably be most effective if we are perpetually about to implement financial impact, but never actually get around to doing it.
Just
So it's always
hanging
like
over.
next year you're gonna, you could lose some pay if you don't get a good rating.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with the first order of business is to get the routine down and to figure out like what is the form and what's the procedure and what is the process. And I think even more than the financial carrot and stick, I think it's important to have something like an improvement plan that gets developed if someone is in some way, needing more support, not doing what they need to do in some way, that there is some support or a plan in place to kind of give them a chance to get back up to where they should be, before you take any punitive kinds of measures. Um, so I don't know, maybe that would be part of year two. But rather than it just being like a threat that you're going to not go up a step, have it also be connected to well, if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, here's how we're going to work together to here's how we're going to help you get there. Here's what you need to do. Um, so it would be a multi-year process.
Right. And I think I may have mentioned this last time, but I know part of this is, either it's me or whoever's in my role and who is overseeing supervisors, looking over those supervisors' shoulders and saying, are you actually rating the person you're supervising, accurately, or are you just kind of trying to get it over and done with and give them a gold star? So in some sense, that's on me or whoever's in that position. So that's
Yeah.
part of it.
And it feels like the descriptions of what they're doing well and what they need to work on could be more valuable than just rate them on 1 to 5 on these 10 things. Because that's much harder it seems like it's a much more likely sort of 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, as opposed to, okay, here's some things that you really have specifically done well, that you have, grown in some way, that this is really positive. And then here's somewhere that, we'd like you to work on. And it can have an employee perspective as well. Here are the things that I feel like I'm doing well, and here's what I would like to work on. I don't know. I haven't seen the form that each supervisor would actually use, but I'm sure there are many options out there.
Yeah. Holly, were you envisioning having like a self-evaluation before this? Because I know some communities do that. They have, self-evaluation, then your supervisor's evaluation and a sit down.
I would love to envision having the employee review their own performance first, and it doesn't have to be lengthy, just a few commentary on categories, and then that's passed on to the supervisor to then complete their side of it. And a few comments that have been made as far as people doing quick 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. But if the form is developed at least where, in addition to doing a rating, you have to at least do a supporting comment for why you're rating the person in that way, with maybe an example or two where, for a more superior performance, they have stepped up and taken on a project, helped out with something additional, maybe even beyond their normal responsibilities. And having the employee do a self-eval also, I think sometimes we get too in the moment looking at someone, like what their performance is versus what has it been for the whole year, where the employee might say, well, 6 months ago, I helped out with this, and somebody may not, always remember that when they're doing the evaluation. So I do think, both sides of it are important, because then, Raylan, you said, as a kind of a tool for developing the employee who maybe needs some skills developed, they can work in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, I like that, Holly.
And as I said, Chris, I'd love to take a stab at, a form, but we've got to, I guess, get some of the basics decided before you go that route.
Well, I mean, I'd be happy. Like, there are the forms that I have. I have something that sounds very similar for my job. I mean, I've got a blank one filled like up right here. It has an evaluation scale, for core competencies such as like job knowledge, quality, communication, etc. There's a section that a reply provides for employee self-reflection on successes and challenges. And then in that section, then there's a supervisor can add their comments to that. And then a third section is what are your goals for next year? And then a supervisor can comment on those goals. And then there's a section for additional comments. And so, be happy to kind of, clean mine off, and share the generic one. So.
Is yours from UMass?
No, I work at Greenfield Community College, so I would
Oh,
imagine there
I'm
might
sorry.
be there's probably some similarities, I would imagine, since we're both state institutions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have a template also, which, I'm happy to get it to Chris, and then maybe, before we next chat, people could look at a few different ideas of forms. Eric, send yours along as well.
yeah.
And I would say, so our work plan has us looking to approve or recommend any policies to the select board in May so that they can take a look at them in June and adopt for the new fiscal year in July. So I don't know if, this is a fairly short policy that Holly's put together here. And it's relatively generic. The form will be, I think, as we've said before, where the devil will be in those details, but that doesn't need to be developed in order for this policy to go into place. That could be a next step afterward. So we can certainly keep thinking about this policy and maybe try and come back to it in May and get it across the finish line then. But also, if folks feel comfortable, moving this forward tonight, we could also do that as well.
Do we want to propose it like a year one, year two, future sort of goals? Just, I mean, I think because it feels like we've been saying sort of we're not quite ready to jump in all at once with both with the salary, with the bonuses and the step, restrictions.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessary that we get into those level of specifics for the purposes of adding something like this into like a personnel manual. I think that can come the specifics, like you're talking. There's like there's the framework. There's okay, employees know that there's going to be a performance management program. Like that is an expectation as a town employee that you will have there that you will be going through this process, and then the details of what that process actually is going to look like, and varying stages, phases, however we're deciding to roll it out. I don't think that's not something that I think necessarily needs to be in place by May, so that it can be put into like that we add it to the manual through the select board through their voting for AY27 or FY27. Sorry, I just showed my my college. I said AY academic year.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. I mean, so my suggestion would be, if this, in theory, if we move this forward and I present it to the select board in late May or early June, I would maybe provide some generic context about, hey, the personnel board talked about it. We want to try this program out for a year and then, maybe explore some financial sticks and carrots, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And again, that's just speaking to the select board. So I don't necessarily think in the rollout, to Eric's point, we need to get more specific with the employees about it. Because we don't know yet. We don't actually know what those bonuses or whatever the opposite of a bonus is would be.
As
Yeah.
far as requiring these, would you want them all done around a certain time frame, or would you go with like an anniversary date of when someone was hired? How would that be implemented?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I've heard it done both ways. In my mind, it would make sense to do them all at once and prior to the budget season, so that you kind of already go in having a sense. Your supervisor could, looking ahead to if there is actually financial sticks and carrots, they might know who's getting a step increase and a bonus and who's not. But happy to discuss that further. Jim, you got a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's a lot to ask of department heads to keep track of what month their employees were hired.
I agree.
Yeah, well, we obviously we've got access to that information and we'd have to put it on a calendar somewhere, but yeah. So I would be kind of envisioning this probably in like, maybe in January or something before the budget season really kicks off. There's no slow season, I'll say that, but, that might be the most convenient time.
It could be a fall thing, before the push is really on to get for the budgeting season.
It's true. We often have a fall special town meeting, so I know that does consume a fair amount of folks' time. But maybe it's an October, November thing. Try to get it done before Thanksgiving. But again, there's no slow time of year, so
Yeah.
you kind of just have to pick it.
Is there an existing system, like when someone is newly hired, that they have like a 3-month review or something like that?
No, we don't. I mean, we just don't have anything at this point. In individual contracts for some employees, they do have, at least in theory, evaluations. But again, it's really just been, I think Deerfield did this in the past, and there have maybe been a couple instances where they implemented a management program, and there's turnover and things fall by the wayside, and so it wasn't kept up. So hopefully, if we move forward with this one, it'll stick.
I'm sorry to be distracted, but I see a very large animal in the field right behind my house. That's why I'm looking alarmed.
Can you tell what it is?
I can't tell. I can't tell if it's a bear or a big coyote because it's pretty far away. Oh, it's going fast. Sorry. Don't mean to distract from the work here. I'm getting out my vernacular stuff.
Yeah, that does sound like compelling viewing, so I don't blame you.
Better than looking at us.
So what do folks think? Do you want to vote this tonight, or do we want to just think about it a little more? Again, we have a meeting set for May, and we could, if we really, really need to, do a meeting in April, though I always try to avoid it just because of, prep for town meeting and the budget, et cetera.
Well, you wanted to put this before the select board by May, right?
No, by late May. So, if we meet, I think we have a meeting on the 18th, and on our kind of committee work plan, we were going to try to make recommendations on personnel policies at that point.
Okay. Well, no one has made a motion, so.
All right. Well, so maybe we'll just table this till next time, and be ready to take a vote at that point. I did send this around to everyone, so if you have a chance and you want to take a look at it and add some thoughts, please do so and send them my way. And then I think the last couple items we've got here tonight, just pull up my list here. Oh yes, the police staff assistants. So let me pull that up for everyone. So I did have an opportunity to reach out to some other communities, because if you recall, the biggest outstanding questions for this job description had to do with the matron role, and what exactly that looks like.
Oh, yeah.
So I found specific police matron roles in Ashby, Marlborough, and Andover, and they all included escorting and searching female subjects or female, suspects or detainees. The only one that even mentioned restraint was Andover, and that was in the context of training that was required for the position. So it was a little ambiguous. It said that 8 hours of training, including in restraint, would be required for the position. So it's a little unclear. But yeah, Jim, you have a question?
Isn't there a legal requirement that somebody be a badged officer to do that? I mean, you or I can't just go around handcuffing people, you know?
Right. Well, so again, this is the sort of ambiguity with this position. It seems
Right.
like some communities have prepared their matrons to, on occasion, restrain someone.
I'm not sure that it would be legal for them to do that. I don't know.
Right, right. Are they a sworn officer that can
Right.
actually, yeah, undertake that? Yeah. Well, given that 2 out of the 3 job descriptions I saw from other communities did not include anything about restraining, and the one that didn't kind of spell it out in the physical requirements of the position. It just mentioned it as training. My inclination was just to remove that part of the job.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if the person in this position ever was
Yeah.
in a position where they had to restrain someone, that someone would, blame them for not having restrained someone, and see it as a failure to fulfill their job duties. So that was my thought, was just to remove the lift and restrain pieces from this job description and
Yeah.
include assist and search, or escort and search.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
And then the other item that came up was just the travel during inclement weather. That did appear from the other job descriptions, the other police matron job descriptions, to be, pretty common. So there are just instances where this position, though it's mostly administrative, is going to be needed to help out during, inclement weather or other emergency conditions. So again, it seemed like it was a pretty standard piece of the puzzle here.
Well, that also does have a pretty significant effect on the, wouldn't that also have a pretty significant effect on the physical requirements? Because, you are going to have to be able to get places on foot that might not be easy to get to and things like that.
Well, I think, the physical parts of the job are spoken to in the physical skills and the work environment. And I don't know if we need to dig into it further beyond what's there already.
Let me just look it up again.
Yeah, take a look.
I had some other things that I flagged that I don't think were addressed in this rewrite.
Remind me which ones those were.
Okay, let's see. Under essential functions, the second page. That spilled over into the second page. Oh,
Yeah, here.
okay. Oh, I did see you caught the staff assistant at the top, because that was one other comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have.
So the maintain and update the daily log. It still makes it sound like, I know you have the as assigned, but it still makes it sound like they're largely doing that. But isn't it the officers when we had talked about it?
Right. Yeah, if we want to strengthen as assigned, maybe we're just saying,
Maybe when assigned versus,
yeah.
I don't know. it just seemed like it was putting the onus back on this position.
Or as assigned when officers are not available to fulfill these duties or something. I don't know.
Or as a backup to the officers. I don't know. It just seemed like it was putting it too much on this position.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for the protection of whoever gets the staff assistant job, don't let there be any way that the officers can fob off all their logging requirements on the assistant.
Right.
Right.
But Chris, I was just looking up the work environment and physical and motor and visual skills section.
Yeah.
So you added travel sometimes during adverse weather or outside regular hours to work environment. There is nothing under physical skills about, may need to be able to operate in, the woods, the river, whatever. And I could see that being a potential issue if I suspect that somebody with mobility issues might not be able to fulfill that. And it would be kind of important to make sure that's specified clearly in the description.
I was reading this travel to be just traveling into the police department during a weather situation to help out with the operation in the office. I wasn't reading this that this person would be doing outside of the office activities.
Well, there is employee may occasionally be required to perform duties outdoors regardless of weather conditions.
Yeah, I kind of envision that as, if there's something they need to do to help out with cruisers, or again, if they're the matron, if there's a female detainee who needs to be escorted into the facility. I didn't take it as they're going to be scrambling around the woods. So I feel like we're probably in a place where
I guess perhaps we should point blank ask Chief Paciorek if he thinks a person who uses a wheelchair would be capable of filling this job. And if the answer is in the negative, then we need to make that clear in the description.
Well, it does say physical skills with intermittent standing, walking, and stooping.
I am partly trying to cover our ass legally.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand.
I think I interpreted the weather thing as like, if the weather's bad and town hall is closed, the police station is not.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is not some, ancient scripture. The person who wrote it is in the building right next door to
Right.
You can be asked.
Right, true. We don't have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to guess.
Yeah, certainly happy to ask. What if he thinks that makes sense. So, yep, I can follow up with him. Holly, did you have other
I did.
updates?
I'm sorry to be a pest. If we could go back to that section.
Yeah.
So again, you're going to look to add something on that as assigned
Sure.
kind of area. And then the next one is maintain a variety of databases. And then it says provide training to officers in their use. Is that really this person's role to train the officers on this? I thought we had talked about that as far as the training.
I think it might be another one to ask Chief. Does it? I could kind of see when, maybe your officers are out and about a lot and this person is working at a computer for the most part. And so maybe they are more familiar with the software. But yeah, it is a good question whether or not they should really be the ones having to train folks.
Okay.
Let me add a comment there.
Okay, and then the next section, that supervision received.
Yep.
I thought it was still confusing. The sentence 3 on the third line, the staff assistant is expected to solve most of the problems. Let's see, I'll read off of mine. It's harder on the computer. Most of the problems, by adapting methods, blah, blah, blah. I thought that was a little confusing. Like, I'd almost like that explained better. Maybe it's just me reading that, but it's almost sounding like they're handling almost everything on their own and they're getting no supervision on all of those things. And it just seemed to be like a large bag of responsibility there. You know, adapting methods, bylaws, laws, ordinances. I would almost think that would be, you know, run up the flagpole to the chief.
Yeah, I almost feel like I want a concrete example from the chief of what this is sort of describing. Like what's a scenario where they're having to use, say, a local bylaw.
Right.
Because yeah, it's a little hard to picture.
Mhm. Or maybe it would be like assist chief in doing those things.
Right. Well, I think
But
probably
again,
what
this
makes
is under supervision received.
Mhm.
So
Right.
you know, are they being supervised for these things? It sort of sounds like they're doing all that without supervision.
Right. So I think probably what makes the most sense is let me like clean up a couple things we've identified here, and Holly or anyone else, I don't know if you have more comments, but probably you know, it's best to bring Chief back in to speak to some of these questions, and hopefully we can get the clarity and just get it across the finish line. Which in that case I would suggest, though I'm loath to do it just because of how much work there is before town meeting, we probably should actually schedule an April meeting. So we can talk about that at the end of this session. But does anyone have any other comments or questions?
I had a few more, but do you want them?
Sure, unless you want to send them, you know, send them offline, so to speak. Yeah, you know,
Okay,
that's
I can do that.
that could work too.
Sure, I'll do that. It'll save some time here.
Great. I think that's all I had. I think that actually one more thing. Just wanted to give a quick update under the town administration updates item on the agenda. We had the select board had frozen backfilling of positions in February. We had a lot of budget concerns. I will say since that memo went out, we did have the school budgets come in fairly favorably. And we also had our health insurance move forward with some plan design changes that are also going to, you know, I think it's only a 12.5% increase instead of a 20% increase,
Wow.
which still feels ridiculous, but is a major material savings for us as well as for the schools. And so indirectly for us through their assessment. So this is all to say that the select board discussed it yesterday and felt that it was appropriate to pull back the backfilling freeze for the remainder of FY26. And this is definitely important for a couple reasons. One, we received our current assessor administrative assistant's retirement letter this week. So we now know that position is going to be vacant effective July 1. So the principal assessor position that this board passed a job description for may be posted soon. Obviously, there's still a little more process in terms of the budget for the position, but I think you know it'll be hopefully posted before town meeting. And hired afterward, if that makes sense. There's also, I know Chief Pachurik is looking to fill, there's going to be a retirement from the police department. He's looking to fill that position as well. And in terms of other positions that have been discussed by the Finance Committee, I know Pete Law from the Conservation Commission went and spoke about the proposed conservation agent position going to full-time. That was, I think there was a consensus on the Finance Committee for the most part that was a little bit too much.
Sure.
Jim, maybe you recall the exact number of hours they asked him to whittle it down to, but
I think we asked them to prune it down to something like 18.
yeah.
So that it would be under the part-time threshold, because it was at an awkward number. It was like 24, which is above the part-time threshold, but not 40, you know?
Right. And you know, I think that reflected Pete was trying to find out if there was a community we could share those services with.
Which everybody thinks is a great idea.
Right. Yeah. We are in a tricky place with that because we have too much wetlands work to just glom on to one of these other shared services arrangements that some of these communities have. And but we're too small to really take on a full-time conservation agent, or at least that was the feeling of the Finance Committee, which is understandable for sure. So that position currently, I think, has been recommended at 18 hours. There has been some discussion about letting Pete come back and talk it over some more, simply because we felt like he didn't fully expect to be in the hot seat at that meeting. So we didn't want him to feel like he didn't get a chance to truly make the pitch for the position, which is obviously important for the Conservation Commission. So more to come on that potentially. And then I just wanted to see any other questions from Personnel Board on any personnel items before the town.
Were there any other positions, full or part-time, that were on freeze, like you said, backfill, that are being opened, or are those the only ones?
Well, so to my knowledge, there aren't any other positions that folks are looking to backfill. Yeah, it was just the police position and the assessor. So yeah, I do, now that you say it, I do feel like there is one other, but I cannot recall what it was. So if I think of it, I will email you.
Town clerk no. Oh, then we have a
Yes, thank
full-time.
you. Yes, that's it. So our town clerk went before the Finance Committee last week, or was it, excuse me, the beginning of this week, and just discussed the assistant town clerk position.
Oh, yeah.
We've
Okay.
had that position on our class comp and approved for several years, and we just haven't actually been able to fill it. Next year, as it turns out, is the mother of all storms in terms of elections. There's potentially going to be up to 6 elections between, congressional midterms and, the Franklin County Technical School vote on their, debt exclusion for their building, and a couple of other things. So there's kind of a lot on that department's plate. And so Cassie, our town clerk, is hoping to fill that position before July 1. So that position is another potential job posting that'll be out there. And again, couldn't happen while we had that freeze in place.
Yeah. Remind me, that was a part-time? Am I correct in my remembrance of that?
Yes, it is part-time. I think, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, Cassie had proposed just 10 hours a week, and people actually made her increase it because we were so worried about.
Yeah, some of the other members of the Finance Committee voted in favor of raising it back to 12 and a half hours a week. Although I was not aware at the time that the position is not filled. But I guess it's just as easy to fill a 12 and a half hour position as a 10-hour one. But yeah, we did approve restoring it to 12 and a half hours a week.
Right. So that's another position that, again, our town clerk was eager to fill, and so we'll likely be posting for. And it's the kind of position that it may be filled by a retiree, or someone who's, for whatever reason, taking taking a break from full-time employment. So we'll
Yes.
see what we're able to get.
12 and a half means what? 600 odd hours, 625 hours a year? Am I correct about that? I think I am. So yeah, that would be a good post-retirement job for someone.
Well, if you know anyone, Jim, let us know. Yeah. Well, anyway. So it's an important position for our town clerk again, given just the election situation that's going to come up next year. And we also noted, we're going to be transitioning to a new building, and there's going to be some things to figure out on that end as well in terms of postings and also some of the other duties that our town clerk undertakes. So hopefully we'll be able to fill that position and provide her with some much needed assistance there. So, all right. Well, thank you for the reminder, Eric, because I couldn't recall what that last position was, but it was the assistant town clerk. Any other questions from personnel board members at this point?
No.
All right, excellent. Well, let's if we could, let's just look at our calendars real quick and see if there is an April date that we could find. I know we had been trying to transition to quarterly, but it just really wasn't in the cards, so that's okay. We'll see what's available. I guess first question is, do Thursdays, we've kind of been just jumping around the week, but do Thursdays generally work well for folks?
Thursdays are generally good for me.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
days are gradually filling up.
As of right now, yeah, I would say Thursdays are probably fine. I'm just thinking ahead. I know that my son will eventually start baseball here, but when that actually is going to start, I have no idea.
Yeah, let's see. My calendar is not.
Opening day is usually in April.
That's right. Yeah, does
thinking the
Thursday?
9th or 16th?
Yeah,
I can't do the 9th.
How does the 16th at this time sound to everyone?
Great
I
for me.
could do that.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I will put it on the calendar and I'll send out an invite to everyone and an agenda. And just, get in touch with me if you have any additional agenda items you want to add. And I'll try to get Chief Pachurik at that one as well. So I'll check in with him and let you know if for some reason he can't make it. We need to reschedule. Okay. Well, appreciate everyone's time.
Good to see everybody.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.